It is a pivotal time as the 2024 GOP primary heats up. There's a lot to talk about, as you've kind of seen recently. More and more events are happening, more dramas happening back and forth between the candidates, and I feel that it's a good time to have that discussion. So tonight, folks, on the Vince Dow Show, we'll be hosting a live Trump v. DeSantis discussion slash debate slash just conversation between actually an audience member of ours and myself, and it should be very interesting, and it will be live tonight, right? Because the other night, I know you guys were mad, it's pre-recorded. Okay, what was the first time? We were making sure it works. This one is live, so it'll be very fun. Stay tuned. Let's do this. And we are live tonight from the great state of Florida. Welcome everyone to the Vince Dow Show. I am your host, Vince Dow, and as usual, be sure to leave a like on the channel, on the stream right now, I should say, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We just got back from the actually Turning Point event in West Palm Beach this weekend. It was good to meet some of you guys. Shout out Rowley Gonzalez. I specifically remember meeting him. And so we're back here. And as you may have seen over the weekend, it's a big kind of time in the GOP primary. On Friday, you had the Blaze TV stream that, Tucker Carlson did with a number of different candidates. Mike Pence, very famously. Ron DeSantis was there. Nikki Haley. Over the weekend, we had the Turning Point event. Just the 2024 GOP primary is a very big discussion right now, and I figured it might be the perfect time for a Trump-DeSantis debate slash discussion. Now, one of our audience members actually emailed me the other day saying, hey, I'd like to have this discussion. It'd be very interesting. It'd be very fun. So we're going to do that. We're going to bring him in here in a second, live right now on the channel. But first, I do want to say that if you do have questions or comments for me, for our panelists, or just generally speaking that you want read and answered on the debate live itself, we are live. We are doing the debate live tonight. So feel free to send it in. Again, you got questions for me, questions for the panelists that you want answered, all open to the super chats. And of course, as usual, super chats are the best way to support the show. So feel free to do that. I know we got a few right before we begin here, so let me actually just read those really quickly. Dollar for $2 says, thoughts on NCAA name, image, and likeness. I think it's a good idea, dollar for dollar. I do kind of support the concept of it, right? Because the schools make so much money off the players should make something in return. I don't have a problem with it, but it's very abused. I don't think you should be able to buy recruiting classes and have these crazy collectives the way they do. I think it needs to be reeled in somehow, but that's my answer. Thank you for the $2, dollar for dollar. And Republican Thinker for $2 Canadian says, what's your thoughts on Bohemian Grove? I definitely think Bohemian Grove is sus. I'm sure a lot of, degenerate, suspicious things go on there, but I don't know if it's the only secret society Illuminati thing that exclusively is pulling the strings of U.S. government. I think we always try to boil it down to one thing. I think there are many different little groups there that do that stuff. But thank you for the $2 Canadian. I definitely think it's very sus, and I think the Bushes and stuff are a part of it, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of strange things that go on there in Bohemian Grove. Many are saying this. But all right, again, if you guys do want to super chat tonight, feel free to do so. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this tonight. So we bring in, ladies and gentlemen, our panelist, Pravir. Am I saying your name right? Pravir?
Yes, sir.
Pravir.
You are.
All right, well, if you'd like to introduce yourself, this is our DeSantis panelist, so feel free.
Yeah, man. So I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm a rising senior at a local high school called Jailman. And I'm a big fan of Vince's, actually, which led me to the idea of, emailing him and asking him, can we have this conversation? I think it would be helpful. Right. And a lot of people would enjoy it because I've seen, as many of you have, Vince's amazing work, whether it be on his channel or that episode he did on Vice, where he stands his ground and maintains its point. I think it's very inspiring and something a lot of people my age are starting to do. So as they're starting to do that, I think it's important that we put these bits of information out there so that young Americans and Americans alike can make their own informed opinion on who should be their president come 2024.
Sure, and I mean, I know you say your age. We basically are the same age. I'm 20. Yeah. I'm 20 years old. You know, I'm a couple years older than you. But I know what people are going to... Vince, why do you keep debating high schoolers? First of all, because they're the ones who reach out to me. I don't know. You know, they're more interested, whatever. But, you know, I'm in college. It's not that big a deal. So before anyone says anything about that, okay? Listen. But yeah, okay. So I guess we'll start it here because I just came back, obviously, from the event this weekend. And I guess we'll tie it into the start of the discussion here. So over the weekend, Ron DeSantis very famously refused to speak at the Turning Point event. You know, he didn't want to do it. I guess Trump was on the stage, Tucker, others. And, you know, that's one thing. It's obviously his decision where he wants to speak or what he wants to put his platform on. But you look at that, he also doesn't want to do an interview with Megyn Kelly. He doesn't want to do one with Patrick Bet-David. My whole thing is, I guess my question to you is, how do you expect your guy to win when he just seems to have an aversion to garnering publicity? Because I seem to notice ever since he announced that, you know, he got a lot of waves. Some of it was good, some of it bad, but he made headlines, he got attention. It seems to me ever since then, the DeSantis campaign is having a really hard time garnering attention. I think attention is everything when it comes to winning a primary, getting elected. Do you think DeSantis has problems on that front, or what's your kind of thoughts there?
Well, so in terms of attention and specifically last weekend, I would make the argument that the governor was at the Blaze Presidential Summit, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was in Iowa.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the next day was TPUSA.
Right. Yeah.
So I would just make the argument, maybe it's a bit hard, maybe he's a bit busy for him to travel, like, I don't know how long that flight is, but maybe like a 4 or 5 hour flight, get back, get prepared for this speech, and then go out and present it. I think it's worth noting that President Trump wasn't at the Blaze Presidential Summit.
Sure, that's fair.
But he was there at TPUSA. So I think it's just more of a timing thing. I think these guys want to get their message out, but they also have to be realistic in what they can do, because at the end of the day, they're just humans. And the governor is still currently running the state of Florida. So he might have been busy. Things might have caught up with him. And he's campaigning versus other candidates who are just primarily campaigning right now that have time. And this is their main thing they're focusing on a year before primaries.
So again, right, with one event, it's not a big deal. He can speak where he wants to speak. But my big thing is that I don't see him putting himself out there the way he needs to be. You know, I know he's been doing events. I know he's been doing speeches, but I haven't heard about them. I haven't seen them, you know, being talked about, making waves, making headlines. And, you know, I think that matters, right? I think if he is going to not just overtake Trump, but really beat Biden too, right? Because he needs to be a center of attention, a magnet of attention to get votes. Turnout is very important when it comes to the current electoral system. I just don't see that with him, and I think it demonstrates some type of incompetence or something on their part where he just has this failure to really be noticed and make waves. And I think that's why you see Vivek Ramaswamy surging, because he keeps being seen, he keeps being heard. And strategically speaking, I don't understand this Ron DeSantis strategy of like make no waves, garner no publicity, and don't really do anything, if that makes sense. What's your thoughts?
Right. So in terms of publicity, Ron DeSantis was like the not number one, I won't say, but one of the most active names after President Trump coming into May, where then at the end of May, he had that Twitter space with Mr. Elon Musk, which brought in over, I think, 1 million viewers on this space as well, and caused the platform to crash many times. And I think to judge just from then to now, where it's only really been a month and a half, and we still have a year to go for the actual presidential GOP primaries, I think that might be a bit quick to the point, might be jumping the gun a little bit. I think we have to give it a bit of time, see what he has in store before we make quick judgments based on just a weekend of essentially press conferences or speeches.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure he can turn it around. My whole thing is I look right now, you know, you're reaching the point. I don't know if we're there quite yet, but it's getting close. You look at the polls, right? Trump's ahead by like 30, 40 in some polls. I think if you don't start catching up and making waves now, the Iowa caucus is in January. This is a big gap in my opinion that you're trying to make up, and I don't know if the current strategy he can do that, but I guess we'll see if that changes. Okay, then the reason I brought that up though is to argue a greater point. I guess we'll start here and then we can talk about the actual like policies and ideas of the candidates, but we'll start here because I think this does matter too. Is the question of electability. Right, the Ron DeSantis crowd very often tells us that their candidate is more electable than Trump. Most of the time, the argument is because he's more appealing to, say, your suburban moderate, your suburban independent, and maybe that's true, right? But I look at the way both campaigns have been going now. To me, there has been a degree of incompetence on DeSantis's part, an inability to really garner attention, make waves. And so there's that, I would argue, where I'm a little bit skeptical. I don't think if he's running the campaign the way he is right now, he honestly would beat Biden. Yeah, sure. By November, he probably would get it together, but still, it makes you a little bit worried, right? Because his aura of political invincibility he used to have, that's starting to wear off. And then there's a greater point about electoral turnout I'll make in a second, but I guess I'll kind of pitch you to you, I guess. What's your electability, your viability argument for Ron DeSantis?
Yeah, I think if Ron DeSantis is the GOP nominee, he wins, and he wins pretty easily because no one is voting for Joe Biden or, for that matter, any Democrat. Again, given the past 2.5 years we've had, unless that man is Donald Trump. The only thing that gets the liberals and the Democrats and these more left-wing people to go out there is that name, because the media, in fairness or not, has painted him as this irrational, racist, which we know he's not, but that's how they painted him, as just an all-around bad person. And they'll make the argument that the events of 2020 will happen again under his presidency, and they'll make the argument that he doesn't care for the people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, versus you have a guy like Ron DeSantis, who is just one of the people. He's not some super billionaire from New York who inherited all his wealth and riches. He's just an average dude. He's worked hard. He went to a decent college, right? A pretty good college. He served our country in the army, and he has a nice, happy family with one wife, not three, right? Some nice children. He's your average American achieving the American dream. And I think people will relate to that, and I think that will help him win.
So if it's the case that people are only showing up against Donald Trump in terms of the liberal base, how do you explain, firstly, the 2022 elections, where I know people will say it was Trump-endorsed candidates, but still Donald Trump was not on the ballot. A guy like Dr. Oz didn't even run a campaign anything like Trump and was defeated there, right? And then if you want to say, okay, 2022 is still Trump's fault, how do you explain something like the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, where the candidate openly said, the conservative justice said, I don't want Donald Trump's endorsement. He refused to get it and then lost by like 10 points. I would make the argument, maybe in 2018, for instance, you could argue, oh, Donald Trump's personality is turning out people against him. But the way I see it now, I think when you look at the COVID-related changes to the voting process, right? You look at the fact that the election season is now a month long, and the Democrats have capitalized on that, right? They've built this political machine where they guarantee turnout 100% of the time. I don't think it's a matter of Donald Trump or whatever on the ballot, because I think if it's Ron DeSantis, if it takes an issue to mobilize them, they'll use abortion, they'll find something, right? I think what we need to do on our end is more so be saying, Democrats have this built-in turnout machine. We've seen since 2020, they just keep managing to do it because of the way the system works. I think we need a candidate who's going to go in, build infrastructure, and counter their turnout game with his own turnout game. My concern with someone like Ron DeSantis is, like we brought up, lower energy than Trump, makes less waves than Trump. I have concerns that even if he wins a slightly better margin in the suburbs, he won't be able to run up the margins with our own base in the way that is needed to win in the current system, to match the existing turnout of Biden. So that's what I would say on that front is, I don't think liberals anymore are turning out only because of Trump. I think the way they've set up the system and the way they weaponize an issue like abortion basically guarantees this built-in turnout for the left. And I think we need a high energy candidate to come and counter that.
I don't think it's about energy, it's about substance. Because in terms of high energy, the Democrats have all this high energy, like diversity, abortion, all that stuff. But when it comes to actual substance, when it comes down to actually how are my gas prices affected? How's my day-to-day life affected? That's when you see the more conservative side come in. That's when people are more rational and they think, who's going to help me at the end of the day?
Well,
right? And that's when people shift.
Perhaps, but like I said, if that's how the country voted, we would have swept in 2022. But what you find with democracy very often is it's not all about rationality. It should be, right? But I think something like energy is a factor, you know? And I think the fact of the matter is, you look at rural America, you look at the Republican base, small town America, there's a lot of people who need to be mobilized. You need to give them a reason to vote. And Donald Trump obviously is a hero in conservative America, so he's able to do that. I have questions about Ron DeSantis' ability so far to do that, or any of these other candidates, frankly.
Well, I mean, hero is, I would say that's a bit strong, but Donald Trump says what people want to hear. He's very good at that. But when it comes to actual substance, not so much. I mean, if you look at the promises he made, like, he's good at saying things, but he doesn't really deliver on them as much. If you look at the promises he's made, one of them that he's making again this time around is saying that he'll release all these files on JFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Martin Luther King, surrounding their untimely passing and the reality of what was happening during JFK's presidency. You look at that, he said the same exact thing in 2016, and nothing happened while he was president. And if you look at what he said about Hillary Clinton, he said that he would go after Hillary. There's even that famous clip where he says you'd be in jail when Hillary said that it would be bad if he was president. And he didn't deliver on any of those things. He said he drained the swamp. He filled it. If you look at federal agencies, federal agency jobs increased at a higher rate than they did throughout all of Obama, a Democrat's 8 years in the presidency. Versus if you look at someone like Ron DeSantis, he's actually delivered. He's improved Florida's infrastructure. He's gotten money to do it. He's improved their highways, their roads, the livelihood of individuals there. He's also improved their economics, incentivizing big companies to come to Florida and give people jobs, give them money, essentially, to work for and to earn. I think these are big things that pay off, and that people, when it comes time, the later part of this year and the early part of next year, when campaigns really start putting that money in, then we will see people's minds change, people's opinions shift, and Ron DeSantis come out on top.
Okay, so we'll talk about policy, obviously, in a second. I'm planning to address that in this. But
absolutely,
on the electability front, I think that Ron DeSantis can sell, oh, well, I did a good job in Florida, but that's one state in the country, and that's a state we're going to win anyway in 2024, realistically, right?
Absolutely.
I think when it comes to, though, the greater country, you bring up the gas prices are bad economically, the housing market, all of that stuff. I would argue there's a lot of people out there in this country that remember how good things were in, say, 2019 and associate that with who was president, right? Because Donald Trump, in many ways, did materially make this country a lot better. And if you want to, make the argument, well, Ron DeSantis improved Florida, especially in comparison to what it is now, right? I think the country was much better under Trump. The reason why I describe Donald as something of a hero to conservative America is that, well, have you driven through, the rural South, the rural Midwest?
No, I definitely agree.
Yeah,
a lot of people like him, and they'd probably vote for him again, but that's rural America. You still have states with far more electoral votes than, say, Montana or Kansas, right? And those are the states that matter. And in those states, people have day-to-day needs that need to be met. And just saying they're being some form of a loudmouth making false promises and just riling crowds up isn't going to convince them. They want something of substance, which Ron DeSantis brings, because he said many policies that he stands for. He's shown his track record with Florida when the whole country was failing economically. And in some way, in sense of a society, Florida stood up, stood proud, and their economy flourished. They recovered greatly from the COVID pandemic, where a lot of states didn't. And I think people want that on a nationwide scale.
So suburban turnout does matter. I'm not denying that, but I don't just mean your Montanas or whatever. Wisconsin, if you don't turn out first of all, the union workers, the blue collar people in the small towns, if you don't hit a certain, baseline of turnout there, you don't win the state. Pennsylvania, if you don't win West Pennsylvania, you don't win the state. Michigan, same thing, and I'll give you, Ron DeSantis might have a better shot in a place like Georgia, maybe in Arizona, right? But those Rust Belt states that, you as a Republican, you have to win at least one of them to win. That's why I bring it up, not because of Montana. I bring it up because it matters there, right? And I don't know how many of the people in a place like, say, I don't know, East Palestine, Ohio, just as an example, there's a million different East Palestines out there. I don't see it yet from DeSantis that he's going to be able to kind of build the political machine necessary to counter what Joe Biden's going to do in a place like Philadelphia or Milwaukee or Detroit, right? So that's my thing. And obviously, okay, you might think your candidate's more substantive. I mean, that's fine. But on the discussion of electability, that energy factor does matter. And I think that, frankly,
well, energy in comparison to an 80-year-old man is not that hard to bring. And I think I think Ron DeSantis can bring it. I mean, his competition at the general platform right now, it's looking like it's Joe Biden. And it's very safe to assume that the Rust Belt states, like you said, the states that don't bring in as many electoral votes in a general election, are they going to vote for a Republican like Ron DeSantis if he wins the primary, or are they going to vote for a Democrat? And it's a very, very safe assumption that they will end up voting red, no matter if that card starts with a T or a D.
Well, that's
right?
not. I disagree with that completely, because Michigan is far from a guaranteed. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. These are the three states you got to win one of them to win. I mean, I don't think either are guaranteed Republican. Because look at how they went in the midterms, right? Wisconsin was not guaranteed Republican. Pennsylvania, Michigan, right? All three, those are not easy states to win. That's why I say you need someone who really takes the energy to these places. Because actually what you've seen a lot in these Midwestern states is that when Donald Trump's not on the ballot, we get crushed. We get decimated. Like, it's not even close. Even people were hopeful about a candidate like Tudor Dixon running against Gretchen Whitmer. I actually thought she had a shot, or at least to do competitive, and she kind of got destroyed, right? Right. So that's my concern with DeSantis is I think I'm worried he's going to go the same way of Donald Trump in the Midwest, which is, every other candidate besides Donald Trump, which is they don't even stand a chance, right?
Mm-hmm. I know, I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm. But I think when you look down to it, what those states want and what they need is someone who can deliver in the same sense that President Trump did. And when you speak about energy in speeches, if you watch the videos of Ron DeSantis, if you watch him speak at events, he can get people riled up. He can get people to notice him, which we saw. People were noticing him from like September of 2022 all the way to this past June. He was in the news for a good majority of the year, and he can do it again come this coming primary season. I don't see why that's not possible at all.
Well, I guess I will have to just wait in a few months and see how that goes, right? But anyways, Burgundy Blue for $10, thank you very much, says, ask him if there is any policy in particular that DeSantis is better on compared to other candidates. If not, ask him if he is simply voting against Trump. If both are true, he should just vote for Vivek. Thank you for the $10. Okay, so I guess the question is there any policy in particular that DeSantis is better on compared to the other candidates? I think is his question for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So DeSantis is way more socially conservative than pretty much any candidate on the field right now, especially Donald Trump. And when you look at the economic aspect, most candidates, or at least DeSantis, fares a lot better than Donald Trump in terms of economics. And I'll explain that if you want to go into that, or would you like to?
Sure, yeah, we'll go into it here in a second. But anyways, one more here. Burgundy Blue sends a member chat saying, Vince, are you planning any meetups or events in DC this fall? I'm asking because I'd like to see you in person again, and I go to university in DC. I definitely will be in DC at some point. I go up there periodically for random reasons. So we'll talk on Discord or something. Or if you have a chapter, you're on your campus, I can always come speak up there. Just invite me or whatever. So thank you for the member chat. Again, guys, you've got questions or comments for our panelists, feel free to send them in via the super chats. Okay, well then let's get into the economic front, because I think that's an interesting thing you bring up. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think if Ron DeSantis were president, the economy would probably get better regardless. But I think that's one of Donald Trump's biggest strengths, is this economic issue. Obviously used to be a businessman, but also the economy under his presidency did fairly well. It hit a lot of, all the historic numbers and whatnot. And honestly, when I look to the future, okay, who's going to get this situation under track? I'm no economic expert. I just know that when Trump was president, things went pretty well, right? And so on that front, I say, well, I think he is justifying candidate to do it again. But what's your sort of economic thing with DeSantis that you think is
Absolutely,
kind of big?
absolutely. So when you look at Donald Trump during his presidency, economics-wise, you'll notice that throughout the entire history of the United States, up until that point, our total debt standing was $21 trillion. In 4 years, Donald Trump managed to increase that to 29 trillion when he left. That's an average of adding $2 trillion worth of debt every year for his presidency. So when you look into that, you realize that the reason this happened is because Donald Trump doesn't know how to do tax laws. Now, in his campaign, he promised, I'm going to cut taxes. And he did, which is a good thing. And I think that should happen so the free market is allowed to play out. But in doing so, he was not able to cut any of the federal programs that required the spending of so many taxes. So to counter that, he printed an ungodly amount of money to counter it, which is what we call an inflation tax, where we inflate the value of the currency to print money to counter the inability of taxes to pay for federal programs. And in doing so, he completely destabilized the American economy for years to come, maybe even decades, and has destroyed essentially the value of the United States dollar. Right now, the US dollar as a fiat currency, meaning it's backed by absolutely nothing. We used to be backed by gold, but they changed that so they could spend more money. Right now, the only reason the United States of America even has an economy or the dollar is even considered to be somewhat important is our military. And because of that, you see military exercises, whether they be wars in the Middle East or having to send supplies. And now we know people into the Ukraine. That's not a good thing. In the short run, maybe your taxes are lower. But then 10 years from now, when you, your children, your grandchildren, who knows, have to pay an ungodly amount of taxes, when the value of the dollar becomes so inflated, the pack of eggs costs you 20 bucks. That's when you'll feel the effect of this. And you talk about him being a fair businessman. I think everyone knows that he went bankrupt 4 times in the 90s. People say that he did that because he wanted to get rid of his debt or something, but any good businessman goes into a business not trying to accumulate debt. And Donald Trump managed to accumulate so much debt, he had to declare bankruptcy because he was unable to pay it back. I mean, there's a lot of things you can go into.
Well, a lot of real estate people went under in the 90s because you had, I think, that recession in the late 80s.
Absolutely, but he didn't go under in real estate. He went under in his casino business, in his hotel businesses, not his real estate. The tower in New York was just fine. It was his casinos in Vegas, his hotels across the world that he had to declare bankruptcy on. That's the problem. He couldn't even run that type of business.
Well, then, but he also came back, though, in fairness, right? He had the art of the deal, he had the art of the comeback, and in fairness, I don't know if, some random politician, if you handed them a $1 billion business, they wouldn't go bankrupt either. It happens in business. Failures happen.
But Donald Trump is not a random politician. He himself has proclaimed himself to be some amazing businessman, and he's been doing business since 1974. So to think 20 years after that he's accumulated all this experience and wisdom, 4 companies go bankrupt within a span of 10 years. You have to look at that, factor it in, and understand that maybe. Well, and
he also dug himself out of a hole, which, similar to me, is the concept of make America great again, right? It's like
bankruptcy. When you say that, he didn't dig himself out of anything. He just said, "I'm sorry, this hole's not my problem anymore. I can't cover it back up," and he walked away and dug the next one. That's what bankruptcy. When you declare bankruptcy, it's just you don't have to pay your debt back. The government waives you off. You have to pay some small fine, sure, but the majority of debt is just cleared. And that's what he did because his businesses weren't making enough money to combat the debt. And now he's increased our debt, everybody's debt, by $8 trillion in 4 years. And that's something you have to look at and realize this guy does not know what he's doing in terms of the economy. And that's something you have to factor in because at the end of the day, the economy is what runs this country and the world. And if you don't have a fix or a hold on that, you don't have a fix or a hold on the country or the free world.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't a lot of that a product of the COVID stimulus stuff, which obviously you look back now on and we should not have done? What'd you say?
COVID stimulus was the last year. You're just focusing on 2020, 2016 to 2017 to 2019, or really till the beginning of 2020. He was doing these policies. He was actively making these changes. We're cutting taxes, but not cutting federal programs, which is just common sense. And he's also inflating the crap out of the currency to the point where prices go up ridiculously, and we feel that pain now. That's why we have such high interest rates right now, to combat the inflation growth. So people spend less money. So they can't go out and buy the things they used to. That's why we have all these problems today. And part of the reason we have the problems is, yes, Joe Biden and the Democratic policy, but part of it is also Donald Trump. And I think people fail to realize that.
So I do agree with you that we need to cut down on federal spending and all of that stuff. Absolutely. But I don't think that's kind of an exclusively Donald Trump issue. It seems to me that every politician who gets in there, you know, all the way back to Reagan and before Reagan, it's the same exact repeating cycle. And yeah, I guess you could criticize Donald Trump for it, but I don't know overall if that's really gonna change all that much anyway. But I do look to though materially, right? Your average American did very well under the Trump presidency, and so, you know, again, I'm no economic expert.
We're looking at the short term when we need to focus on the long term. Longevity is the key. If you want to be able to save some money this year, or do you want America to stand 100 years from now? That's the type of debate we need to be having. That's the type of conversation that needs to be going on. And if you want this country to stand, and if you want yourself to also be able to go out and purchase these goods, you have to understand the full scope of everything and realize who is best for the job. Going off of false promises and just loudness and hype does not guarantee or bring any results, as we've seen.
So I get the point there. I do get the point there. Where's your case though that Ron DeSantis is going to be any different? Are you going to, because yeah, I guess he has a balanced budget in a state. A lot of states have balanced budgets. You know, it's much less entrenched interest to fight there, right? But I look to the Ron DeSantis campaign. Maybe he said this or that, but I don't really hear that being made a central issue either. I don't have any supreme confidence that he either would truly rein in spending, truly cut down federal programs, truly rein in the debt. And frankly, the only person I could see maybe doing something like that is one of those hyper-focused visionary candidates, like maybe someone like a Vivek. That's about it to me. But where's your sort of, where do you get the belief that Ron DeSantis is going to be some type of revolutionary figure when it comes to upending the current system of federal spending and federal bureaucracy? Because I think, if anything, we're playing probability here. I mean, let's be real. We don't know what we're going to get out of whoever the candidate is. But I look at the fact that, you know, really who's going to be the anti-quote unquote deep state candidate, who's going to be the anti-bureaucracy candidate. Hard to tell who it is going to be, but I think that just the fact that Trump was so viciously bullied and screwed over by the federal bureaucracy gives us a chance that he may be a little bit vengeful going forward and be more aggressive about that. And, you know, they're pretty comparable, but I think overall, even rhetorically on the campaign trail, I seem to see a more aggressive attitude towards the deep state and the bureaucracy when it comes to Trump. DeSantis, you could say, is the more like quote unquote socially conservative one. But I think on this front, you know, you're basically splitting hairs, but I don't see the evidence DeSantis is going to be this guy who's going to really come in and totally fix the way the federal government spends its money.
Right. Yeah, no. You say that DeSantis has balanced his budget sheets essentially in terms of Florida, right? And many other states say that. You said that, but you need to realize that Florida is the 13th biggest economy on the face of this earth, second only to the United States, China, India, big countries like this who are exporting trillions, if not billions of dollars worth of goods and importing the same. Florida is on the front page. They're a huge economy, and handling that economy with the ease and with the focus and the determination that Ron DeSantis has is a big indication that he can do the same job on a federal level. And if you look in Florida, he's cut many unnecessary programs sponsored by the Florida government that were just silly, and people took advantage of them to get free money. That's not right. If you want to have an actual economy, you need to create wealth and not redistribute it, something that President Trump hasn't said that he wants to do at all. If you look at Ron DeSantis, he's cut a lot of these programs. There is no state income tax in Florida, but he's also able to support people who genuinely need welfare programs and such, like you know, single moms with many kids, disabled people, former veterans. People like this are getting the care and the attention they need without our money being wasted in such a sense that it artificially stimulates our economy.
So I'm looking around here. I'm trying to get the numbers on this because I'm not an expert on the Florida budget, but I'm seeing here that 2023 was the largest budget in Florida history. I'm not sure if it was balanced or not, but like I said, I'm not an expert on the budget of the state or whatever. But I mean, what I would say overall is, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But again, you're talking about a state government where also over the course of Ron DeSantis' tenure, Republicans have gained a larger and larger and stronger overall majority in the state, right? And so I still would argue that doing that at a state level, which she's not the only Republican governor to be able to do, right? I think, I don't know. I'm not an expert on... Well, I'm not an expert on this issue.
Right. So then I think it's unfair to make that claim then.
Perhaps that's true. But I'm just saying that, well, I think that this happened. Like I said, maybe that's not true, but I'm trying to see. I mean, maybe a state like Texas. Are you aware? Do they have a balanced budget? Are they able to balance the budget? I mean, because if that's the case, which I don't know, I'm not an expert. I see you're like looking at stuff in front of you. I'm not, but let's see. I mean,
I'm just looking at the screen. Okay. I didn't touch anything.
Okay, have a balance. I mean, so it says. I'm reading on the
growth in Texas primarily is due to Californians and other blue state people coming down there because corporations like Tesla, SpaceX,
true. What my okay, so but the
shifted their locations there.
So I'm looking
that's
here,
the primary reason.
But I'm looking here, right? Yeah, both states are growing. It's good. The state of Texas also has a budget surplus, and they are
right because this past year they've brought in a lot of jobs due to Gavin Newsom's abysmal handling.
But that proves my point, which is that when you're an overwhelmingly Republican state in terms of the legislature and you're just running a state government, with like no income tax and whatnot, and you don't have all these different special interests and everything to battle with, I don't think it's the biggest. It's good. It's not a bad thing, but I don't think it's the biggest deal ever that, DeSantis managed to balance the budget in Florida. And I don't know if that's going to translate.
It's not balancing the budget. It's having a vibrant economy through a pandemic, like pandemic-wise, COVID-wise. Or a lot of other states succumbed to that, felt the pain of that. Their economies went down.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah, I mean,
right.
I'm not saying he's doing a bad job economically. I'm just saying
I understand.
I'm not. You say the Trump economy, you discredit it, but you seem to be so blown away by Florida, and to which I say it's like, well, when you're in a Republican state, you're a Republican governor. You had a Republican governor before you as well. I don't think it's the most impressive thing that you can balance a state budget. It's a good thing. It's not bad. But when Texas, the bigger state of Texas is able to do it, and a lot of other states do, then I think it's good, but it doesn't blow me away, if that makes sense.
It's about providing viable economic growth and ulteriors and solutions to corporations and companies that need them, and then will then provide jobs. That's what DeSantis has done effectively. And if you look at it on a national scale,
that's what Trump did for America too.
No, Trump's handling of the COVID pandemic was abysmal. He himself was the one that appointed Anthony Fauci to head the whole program, to head how we figure out this pandemic. And now we know the corruption and the bad things that Anthony Fauci did, and how we were basically lied to for the better half of 2 years. And that's because President Trump falsely put his trust in a man that was wrong. And he needs to do a better job of taking accountability of that. And under Fauci, we had these ridiculous rules and recommendations where you have to stay home. Small business had to shut down. Only the big corporation can exist. And Donald Trump was just fine with that. He didn't do anything to counter Fauci.
That's not
during the majority until let's say September, October.
No, Donald Trump was tweeting out in, I believe, April 2020, he was saying liberate Michigan, which people thought was because he was saying that the lockdown orders in the state of Michigan were too intense and tyrannical.
But that's a specific state. When you talk on a national level, he didn't counter Fauci. He's the one who put Fauci in charge. Fauci is the one who's saying these ridiculous rules that are impacting small corporations. No, there was no national lockdown. I'm not saying that. And in the cases that there were, I agree with you that Donald Trump did say not to do that. But the laws he implemented negatively impact the common man. the small business owner, the small business employee, not the big corporations. And that's something you have to look into when you're factoring in these things. Under Ron DeSantis, small corporations and the common man like you and me thrive. And they thrive because of his leadership, his understanding of the economy, and his overall composure, which Donald Trump lacked. And that's why we were in that state.
So then let's talk about COVID then, I guess, if that's where kind of the conversation is transitioning to. I mean, I hear this all the time, right? Fauci this, right? And I get it. I'm not saying Donald Trump was perfect on the issue of COVID. And I think optically speaking, it's the issue that made DeSantis more popular for a time, right? I don't deny that. But neither was Ron perfect on this issue, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe in 2020, Ron actually called for a restriction on flights, right? When that's a big thing that Donald Trump never did, is he never shut down interstate commerce, which he could have done or could have at least tried to do. I believe Ron DeSantis, if I'm not mistaken, actually came out in support of that, right? So, to pretend as if either person is super duper perfect on this issue, I just don't think that's true, right? And I think the history of this is a little bit misremembered. A lot of governors locked down, and I agree, Trump should have done more. In a perfect world, Trump should have just never hired Fauci, fired Fauci, whatever. But I think this sort of back and forth, it's like the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. I think both people had their flaws, especially in the early days of the pandemic. And I do wish Trump shilled a certain thing we won't say on YouTube less. But I don't see this big separation between the two. You know what I mean?
You say that, but you have to see that Ron DeSantis, the flight thing, commercial airplane flights, when you have 80 people locked in a metal tube for like 3 hours, and a lot of flights come from Florida or to Florida, come from California and New York. Florida is a hub for tourism. That's why he says that. You don't know who's coming in, who's coming out necessarily. And then you have international flights to deal with.
I
People
get
coming from
that.
all parts of the world. You have Disney World, Universal. Florida is a tourism place. So when you have to factor in, what is he specifically talking about? Context is key here. If you're
I fully understand what he's talking about. The point is, you're basically saying, Donald Trump was endorsing Fauci and the lockdowns and all this stuff, or he was abetting it. So, and I'm kind of bringing to you, you could call it an excuse that, yeah, it's not perfect, but, it was the early days of the pandemic. No politician besides like Thomas Massey or whatever is perfect, right? I feel like you doing that for Ron DeSantis is doing a similar thing, which is kind of making excuses. Now, we can both sit here and make excuses for both candidates. I think the best thing to accept is that they're both flawed on this topic. I know the common thinking is DeSantis is miles ahead better than Trump on the lockdowns and whatnot. And I think when you actually look back to especially the year 2020, one guy did better at this, one guy did, they're basically the same, right? And then, obviously going forward, I don't think you're going to have, this is an issue that is probably going to come up again in the next 4 years. Who knows? But I just, if you're willing to say, Trump should have fired Fauci and he didn't do enough about all the states doing these lockdowns, then how can you kind of, defend or make excuses for DeSantis saying what he did about a restriction on interstate travel? Because that's a pretty bad thing, in my opinion, too, to say.
Well, the main thing that people need to take away from this COVID conversation is not that an event like this will happen again or that some pandemic will arise. The main thing is leadership. How does someone perform in the heat of the moment? How good of a leader are they? When Donald Trump started, in all fairness, he was handled a decent economy, a decent America. But in the presence of some danger, some threat, he failed miserably. And that threat was COVID-19. It's about a leader's composure when it matters most. If you're going to get a coach for an NBA team, you're not going to get the one that had LeBron and all these superstars on his team and just glided to victory. You're going to want a coach that had a decent team, and under pressure, he was able to make them thrive. Right? That's what you want. You want someone who can thrive under pressure, who knows what they're doing and delivers, which is what DeSantis did. It's not about having a pandemic. It's about having an emergency and figuring out the quickest and the best way to counter it, which is something that Governor DeSantis did, that shows that if another emergency came across, if a war or if a pandemic or some outbreak of anything happened, he with his track record, proven track record, would be best equipped between the two to deal with it, or honestly, between any of the GOP candidates on the stage, because he's the one that has the highest level leadership, except for President Trump, and has delivered the most under pressure and just in general now with his economy.
Well, let me read super chats really quickly, and we'll continue this conversation. Okay?
Sure,
so
absolutely.
Get to them because I know we've left people waiting here. Let me get caught up.
Yeah.
Let's see here, ladies and gentlemen. Christopher Lowry for $10. Thank you very much. Says Trump got us out of NAFTA and was the first president not to start a foreign war in a while. Ask him about DeSantis on foreign and trade policy. Yeah, we could get to that in a second. Thank you for the 10, Christopher. I appreciate it. Sheeny Beanie for $5 says people need to stop conflating the roles of governor and president. Apples to oranges. Okay, thank you for the super chats, guys. Appreciate it very much. I guess I'll give you then the chance to respond to those things because those are probably talking points I was going to bring up anyway. First of all, I think Ron DeSantis has been a very good governor. Don't get me wrong. But
Absolutely.
I have pretty glaring questions about his ability to really step up and do the same thing in the presidential position. And frankly, the moment he transitioned from being governor to being just a presidential candidate and the way it's just not gone that great so far already raises questions on my end about that. But
it's been a month and a half, man. Come on, you got to give him some time. It's been like 4 weeks. You got to see what they have prepared. You can't judge it right as it's walked out the door. Let him get to the halfway through the race. Come on. This is something that we need to, this is a time thing. We can't judge him on a campaign that's meant to take a year and a half based off the first month. I think that's not fair at all. If you look at Donald Trump, when he announced his campaign, the first month wasn't nearly as well as it was in the later parts, right? So you have to look at this holistically and understand the full perspective.
Okay, but let me tell you the difference though. When Donald Trump first announced, it was crazy to people. People made a joke out of it. People did this, that, but they were talking about it. They were talking about it like crazy, right? Part of the reason Donald Trump won in 2016 is the whole primary. People would not stop talking about Donald Trump. It seems to me, I'm just trying to judge the pulse here. People are not talking a lot about Ron DeSantis. They were before he announced. Yes, they were. For some, whatever it is, the campaign now, and then I do hear him speak. I see him interact and stuff. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. But I think that's the difference. And the fact that usually when you announce, especially if you're an expected candidate, you get what's called an announcement bump, right? Whereas you look in the polls now, there basically was no announcement bump for DeSantis. And so that's part of the reason I bring up some of those arguments.
Right, because
I'm not, even if he was running a perfect campaign, I would not expect him yet to be beating Trump in the polls. That would just be unrealistic.
Absolutely.
That's not my point. My point is just the way I see it going so far and what I see from him, I'm just not very impressed. And it's like, okay, well, are we going to do something here? That's more so my point.
Right.
And by the way, one last thing. This presidential campaign didn't go out of nowhere, right? They've been preparing. Well, you and I both know they've been preparing this since before he won the re-election for governor. They've been setting this up. So I will say, in fairness, I have been expecting more. But anyways, go ahead.
I think you just need time to let it play out. And honestly, in terms of competition, Ron DeSantis doesn't really have any, save for Donald Trump. And now after last weekend, because he's riding that high, Vivek Ramaswamy. But other than that, who really is his competition? Asa Hutchinson, the guy who asked
besides Vivek, the whole campaign, the whole race.
Exactly.
Right?
So when you have, it's just, I would argue that my assumption is right now they've raised a decent bit of money already. If you look, they already broke records for 24 hours. I think they made like $1 million within the first hour, and that's just from normal people like you and I fundraising, or not even fundraising, donations. Donating to it, not some big investors.
That's the only donors of DeSantis, but okay.
Right. But the majority of them, at least in that first hour, from the statistic I'm referencing, it was just like a thing he launched right after his Twitter space. So it shows he has backing. He's gathered the finances, and now he's just being smart about it. Would you rather put a lot of money in right now, a year before, or put a lot of money into your campaign, say this December or January, when we start getting into the actual election cycle with the debates, with the news? That's when it's best to create attention, in my opinion.
But I would say when you're down 30 points, it's like being down multiple possessions in a football game, right?
Right. No, I get that. I get
21,
that. But
you can't start with 2 minutes left. You got the start of the second half. You got to start catching up. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, but this is not the second half. We haven't even finished the first quarter. Like we have a whole year. That's like the whole game left practically to get our strategy together.
Well, the
Figure
Iowa
out who's going
caucus
to
is
play
in
what
6
position.
months. Is in like 6 months, well, 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, half a year. That's
That's a lot of time. You got to make 30
points.
You got to make up 30 points. That's my thing.
Right. Well, I mean, if you actually, now that I'm remembering, Ron DeSantis drew a huge crowd in Iowa versus Donald Trump. The last time, not this past time, back in 2020 when he was there, he got like almost a stadium. And now, this news came out recently. He held his rally in a press conference room full of 400 people next to the stadium. So if you look at Iowa, I think Ron DeSantis has a pretty strong hold in Iowa, and I think he'd probably win. And 3 months from now, when you start seeing some of that money going in, you're going to realize that he's got what it takes.
We'll just have to see then. All right, Republican thinker for 5 Canadian says, most successful people go bankrupt. Even Abraham Lincoln went bankrupt. Bringing up bankruptcy is a non-talking point. Thank you for the 5 Canadian Republican thinker. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'm sure most people, successful people go bankrupt. That's definitely a statistic. But most successful people don't go bankrupt 4 times in 1 decade. I think that's something that should draw your attention, because that just shows his inability to maintain cash flow in a casino business where the house is always supposed to win. That's just basic math that just goes into making those businesses. So I don't know what your logic there is. I'm sure Abe Lincoln went bankrupt at some point, but he didn't have nearly as vibrant of economy as Donald Trump did in the 90s to fail in. So I think you need to look into that a little bit before we make assumptions based off some guy, great president, but from like 150 years ago, and comparing him to a guy now who had a pretty great economy in the 90s. So I think you need to factor in a lot of things when you look at this stuff, especially economics.
NC Populist says the Iowa thing were just volunteers. I don't know if that's true or not. I know the event in Nevada was volunteers, which I did see.
Is he speaking about DeSantis or is he speaking about Trump? Because I would assume
for the Iowa thing. I don't know. I don't know what event you're referencing. I know Nevada was volunteers, and there were people on Twitter saying it's so small. But now, so I don't know about Iowa. I'm not sure on that front. I have no idea. But anyways, okay. Let's see. Got anything else here in the chat? Again, guys, if you do want to super chat the show, feel free to do so. We will, of course, read them and, respond and have this discussion. Businessman for $2 says, just wait until DeSantis announces, guys. Well, I will say in fairness, Pravir, I was told, right, the polls are really going to change when he announces, and then that didn't happen. So what do you think is going to be the big turning point? Okay, this is a question. It's not a debate, but here's a question. What do you think is going to be the turning point in the campaign? At what point, what's he going to do? Because I don't think it's going to be a gradual, he just comes back. There's going to have to be some event or date or something where this is what kickstarts. So what do you think that's going to be?
So in my opinion, not obviously being part of his team or not knowing many of the specifics that go into a presidential campaign, my guess would be he's trying to wait the lower guys out. Guys like Nikki Haley, Asa Hutchinson, the lower guys, wait till they drop out to salvage their points. Then, when it's time to go up against the big guy, Donald Trump, that's when you'll see more of the funding coming in, more of his awareness coming in. My best estimate for you, honestly, when you'll start seeing a lot of Ron DeSantis is December, because I believe the first debate happened in February. Am I right on that?
No, the first debate is next month. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. My apologies. Sorry. But the actual primary is in June. June is when they decide who the GOP nominee is going to be.
Well, the voting starts in January. The first states, I believe, are January.
No, I understand the caucuses go into January. So that's why I'm saying November, December time is when we'll start seeing DeSantis come out more and present his points more. That's my main thing, because you have to be smart about the finances and stuff. And Vivek is mainly going off of online news, and Trump just has his persona of him, speaking and saying things that gather attention. And then if you look at Donald Trump, I think he might be broke now. He's doing an NFT line. He did like 3 of those where he launched NFTs of him in Superman suits and posing as like Captain America.
That was epic. That was epic. That was hilarious. No, but okay. So here's what I'll say, though. So first of all, you said that he kind of expects to gather points. That was your words, right? From Nikki Haley.
Salvage points from,
yeah,
from
Nikki
from the
Haley.
lower guys.
And so you brought up specifically Nikki Haley, Asa Hutchinson. First of all, I would say I don't think DeSantis should be worried about those people at all.
Oh, no, I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying you just get their points. Because to be fair, Nikki Haley, I think last time I checked, had like 5, 6, 7 points in the polls,
Sure.
which, to be fair, is a lot and could help when you're like, when it gets closer and closer between the two and it's like 35, 45. When you look at those points, they help. And Asa might have like 1 or 2. Vivek might have 4 or 5. So when these guys start dropping out, that's when you get those points, and that's when you go for the home stretch, the touchdown.
So who knows if that's going to happen or not? But does it concern you in your eyes that, say, Nikki Haley voters or Asa Hutchinson voters, hypothetically in your eyes, would go to DeSantis? Because that's
well, there's a reason they're not going for Trump. Many people in the conservative party, like let's imagine this is the conservative party. This, like right here, is the Trump section.
Asa Hutchinson
everyone else
is a liberal. Asa Hutchinson wouldn't
exactly.
Yeah.
So they're not voting for Trump. That's the point. It's a guy who, I mean, I don't think he's like a full-fledged liberal. He's technically still a Republican, but he might be more in the center. And those guys are not going to vote for Donald Trump, who's been associated with like the far right by the media or far right ideologies. They just want a conservative person who can back what they say, stands their ground, and can get them the win, which is what Ron DeSantis delivers. I don't see any world where it goes to Donald Trump. I don't see why they would do that. That makes no sense to me. Nikki Haley supporters, I'd be surprised if they did that, because Nikki Haley has badmouthed Donald Trump many times. She even left the UN ambassadorship under his presidency because of him. So I would be very surprised. I think the smartest thing that these guys would do is get in a room together and say, Ron DeSantis goes, Nikki, you can be my Secretary of State. Vivek, you can be my Secretary of Treasury or my Vice President. Figure these things out, which I think eventually will happen. And when it does, you'll see these votes go to Ron DeSantis, and that'll help him win.
So, but I think a very common criticism of the first Trump term was the people he hired. And you're saying now that, you would have no problem hiring back Nikki Haley, someone like that. I mean, isn't that part of the problem we had with the first term, as just as an example?
I don't fully understand what problem Nikki Haley brings. The reason she left was because she didn't like Donald Trump, which is what she said back when she did leave the UN ambassadorship. She didn't like his leadership. Not one bit. The way he's harsh with his language, the way he's abrupt to foreign leaders, that's not something she appreciated. But given her role as a former governor of my state, where she did a pretty decent job, and as a UN ambassador, she would make a good Secretary of State. And I think people see that. That's the point I'm trying to get at.
But she's interventionist on basically every conflict. I believe this week she talked about adding Ukraine to NATO. I believe that was her. If not, I bet you sat down and asked. I'm pretty sure it would be her. So is this then what
right,
your
so
eyes
I'm not that informed on Nikki Haley. My main focus is Ron DeSantis and what he does. That was just an idea I had, given that she's already held an international platform. I don't know the specifics of Nikki Haley's politics.
Oh, that's fair. But I think your point here is raising something. It's actually one of the biggest concerns I have about Ron DeSantis is that all of the people since 2016, and I get it, since, maybe there's some like good faith conservatives out there, they don't like Trump for this or that, but understand a lot of the anti-Trump forces are the people, the Jeb Bush people back in 2015, right? And if they're going to be here coalescing around Ron DeSantis, right? Because that's who this clown car behind Trump, DeSantis, and Vivek, that's what it is. It's the same 2016 era type of people behind this, trying to get these people going. And according to you, if those people are going to be getting behind DeSantis, then to me, I think that demonstrates the very problem, which is that I actually don't hate DeSantis as a governor. I think he's been very good. My big concern with him is that, we know how politics works, right? All of these anti-Trump people are coalescing around DeSantis because they don't want Trump. So what's going to happen in the future, knowing how politics works, is that come 2025, when DeSantis is, let's say, inaugurated, all those people who backed him originally because they wanted to get rid of Trump, and these are not good people, many of them, Praveer, these are not good people, they're going to come and say, hey, now hire my guy or hire me to staff this or staff that. And next thing you know, you have an administration that suffers from the same problem that Trump the first time did, but maybe to a worse degree, which is even if DeSantis is solid on the issues or not, what's going to happen is all these people he's going to be stuck appointing are bad. They're neocons, they're awful, and you get another Bush presidency. You could say, oh, but Trump, the same thing. Part of the reason I have somewhat of a degree of faith in a second Trump term is because of the fact, actually, that all those bad faith actors in D.C. despise him and it's mutual, and the fact that under his presidency, I saw this movement of better conservatives into D.C., staffing the organization, staffing the Hill, all that stuff. I have more confidence that the staff of a Trump presidency, especially the second time, is going to be much better. And if you're saying DeSantis is going to cut all these deals with the anti-Trump establishment to get to the presidency, then I have huge concerns there about who's actually going to staff the second. The first, yeah.
I want to make it clear that Ron DeSantis is very much against the establishment or the deep state or whatever you want to call it. He's very much against that force and retaliates against it in most things he says. They hate the guy, especially for what he stands for. There's no world where Ron DeSantis cooperates or works with the deep state. Now, the comment I made about him possibly, using current GOP
cutting deals, right?
nominees,
cutting deals. Right? Yeah.
Right. That's a bit just. I'm trying to get a feel of what he might do. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's what he would do, and it's probably not, because that's not what he wants to do to get the vote. The point I want to make is more about the voters rather than the people. The people, Nikki Haley, Vivek, Tim Scott, whatever, he probably won't have anything to do with them. But the voters want something to do with him because they're voting for those dudes mainly because they don't want Donald Trump. I mean, you tell me what you see in Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, or what these people might see in a Nikki Haley president or a Tim Scott president or even a Mike Pence president that they would not see in another candidate. The only reason they don't want Trump is because they don't think he's as rational as these guys are. That's my main argument. Sorry, that was a bit of a...
Yeah. So let's see. It's like 9:03. We'll wrap this up in like 10 minutes, okay? But
Sure.
Okay. So the thing is, though, is that I will say I have seen, and like, it's kind of hard to judge on Twitter. Who the heck knows? But I have seen in some cases the kind of quote unquote culture war policies of Ron that I do like as governor. That's what I like about him. I notice very often some of even these National Review types, the sort of Pence crowd, the Haley crowd, whatever. They have made arguments, and I've heard them, that, Ron DeSantis is too radical. Oh, that's, what he did to Disney's big government. I think that's silly. I think that's ridiculous. But
absolutely,
I do think that if Trump suffers from this coalitional weakness, Ron DeSantis is going to have a similar problem where there's going to be some people who think he's too far right for the good things he did as governor. And then there's going to be some people, I think, on the other side who are Trump loyalists and would never vote for DeSantis, right? And so... I'm not saying it's impossible.
A very, very small percentage of people that would be so irrational to think, well, my guy's not in, so instead of voting for the guy that I know could do a good job, I'm not going to vote at all. And look, maybe the Democrat liberal guy wins, but so be it. I'm so loyal, I'm not going to get out of my home and go cast a vote for a guy who I know would do a good job in comparison to this Democrat. That's a bit cultist, wouldn't you think? Just because you believe so highly in one man, you'd be unwilling to show your support in a fair debate, in a fair election where DeSantis wins, and he stands for more or less the same values as Donald Trump, but they have slight disagreements on policy, that someone would say, no, I don't want to vote for DeSantis simply because I believe in Donald Trump and I worship him, essentially.
I get that, and perhaps you could say it is cultish behavior, sure. But the thing is that if that's true, then I think you said earlier that you think there's an anti-Trump cult, which, again, I also think is true. But there's a lot of people out there who would say, I don't care if Trump was a way better president than Biden. The economy was better. Everything was better. But I don't like Trump, so I'm not going to vote for him. That's absolutely real. I'm not denying. There are real people out there like that. But if there's people out there like that, then I think there are real people who would.
It's a shame.
Then on the flip side, there probably are Trump loyalists too. And then there are people who also, like I said, think Ron DeSantis is too far right on the left side of it. This is all just simply to say, the point I'm trying to get at here is I think DeSantis is going to suffer from this sort of coalitional paradox where there's going to be people on the right, your Nikki Haley types, your Mike Pence types, who say he's a big government socialist. I don't like him. But that's what, 3% maybe. But that matters, right? Yeah. That matters. And then on the flip side, you're going to get like the 3 to 5% of Trump people who say neocon Ron not voting for him. You see what I'm saying? So I think, but then add that up. What is that? That's like 10%. 10% makes a difference. You know what I'm saying? So.
But 10% of what? Is it 10% of some random sample? Is it truly 10% of Republicans?
I'm just making up numbers, obviously, you know. But
right. But when we gauge these things, we have to look at the facts and the numbers and figure out, is that a viable alternative or a viable argument? I think presently, as it stands, Ron DeSantis would likely win the GOP primary, and in doing so would easily win a general election. Whereas I think Donald Trump would definitely not fare as well in a general election. And I say the thing about Ron DeSantis is because, number one, he's goal-driven, he's determined. I've elaborated on that. He has his points and he gets what he wants done, and they end up helping the economy. But also, he's young. When you look at Donald Trump, the man is 76 or 77 years old. You look at the majority of independent people, and even some Democrats who realize electing an 80-year-old man for the job was not the right move. They will more than likely shift to a mid-40-year-old who's smart, fast, and knows what he wants to do, rather than another pushing 80-year-old. I mean, if you look at it, Donald Trump would be like, what, 82 at the end of his presidency, second term, if he were to win one? Mm-hmm. Isn't that a bit ridiculous to have someone who, in all other cases, if he was just a normal dude, would probably be in some senior care center, be running the most powerful country on the face of this earth? That is something preposterous, and I think something that people need to think about when they go and cast their vote, right? Do you want an old man, as good as you may think he is? At the end of the day, you have to look at the facts. He's old. He's getting old. He's going to get slower. He might not be as smart, and he'll be easily influenced by the people around him. That's what happens with old age. Versus a young guy, or comparatively young guy, who'd be 45 when he starts, who's smart, adamant, and knows what he can do to fix this country. I think that's important, and I think that's something you need to look at.
So why did they vote for Biden the first time, though? Because Biden
they hated Donald Trump. That's the reason. I'm trying to say that. Right. These guys hate Donald Trump because if you look at it, he appointed a guy, Fauci, who completely destroyed the health of many people, or their conception of it, and did this massive fear-mongering attack during 2020, 2021, and 2022.
I agree with you on that, but I think...
Right. But also...
No, listen. I think...
Sure.
In 2020, so you're criticizing him from the right. I get it. I may have the same criticism. But if you want to talk about the people that didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2020, it wasn't because he didn't fire Fauci, because he wasn't nice enough to Fauci, right? A lot of the suburbanites, they thought Trump was too crazy on the COVID issue because he wouldn't wear he didn't really like the mask and all that. Like, we need to remember that, right? I don't know how much it influenced votes, but a lot of people... A lot of the independents didn't vote for Trump because they thought he was too anti-science. Remember that whole thing, right?
No, I understand that. And he did make those lapses where, like, at press conference, he'd say, put bleach in your stomach or use UV light to get rid of the virus, which we know was in jest, but many people don't realize that. And also, another main reason, there's two reasons he lost, or two primary reasons, and then a lot of other things that were out of his hand, were the race riots. I mean, throughout the summer of 2020, you saw race riots like you had never seen before in this country since the 1960s. I mean, it is ridiculous. People were burning down buildings, small stores owned
which he should have done a lot more about. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Exactly. The main point I'm trying to get across is Donald Trump had a horrible take on the economy, or at least the long-term effects. And under a moment of stress, fourth quarter, 30 seconds on the shot, 20 seconds on shot clock, he didn't know what to do, and he failed. There were massive race riots throughout the country. People died in those. People got injured in those. Buildings burned. I mean, that is some third world country type stuff you're seeing. Rioting based on race. That is utterly ridiculous. That's something that belongs in 1955, not 2020. And his inability to act on that is something that I think should bring a lot of people to realize that he might not be the guy. And again, that may have been caused by the media, but his inability to counteract that, his inability to shut those things down, is where I think he failed. And that's why one of the primary reasons he lost. I think but I will say this in Donald Trump's defense, the mainstream media, and if you look at it, the federal agencies did somewhat act against him. When you look at the Hunter Biden case, Hunter Biden laptop, I think most rational people in this country would not vote for someone whose son is going out partying with hookers and cocaine.
Yeah.
But because that laptop was censored by the FBI, we didn't know about it. The FBI now emails you can see, email, Twitter, and Facebook to say censor these posts. They're completely untrue. And if you don't, we will take action against you. Now we know that's not the case. They were true. And had people known that in November of 2020, I think the votes would have been different. But they didn't. So that's where you see it. But those were Donald Trump's federal agencies. He put those people in charge. He put the guy in charge that ran the FBI. That is major failures in staffing, which I doubt any other GOP candidate, especially Ron DeSantis, would make.
Oh, well, there's a lot of GOP candidates who would staff, I think, a lot worse people. But
yeah,
okay,
no,
here's my point is, so that's your view. So, because I'm trying to, wrap it up here, right? That's your view. My view is that it is true there are points under pressure when Trump was under pressure that he could have handled it better. But yeah, I absolutely believe Ron DeSantis would, and you could argue even right now, kind of is cracking under pressure, right? He has had this aura of political invincibility from about 2020 to around 2022. And that was good, right? And even there are moments where I thought, maybe he could do this. Maybe there's a chance, right? But I think you're starting to see that wear off now. And even something as small as, he answers a question awkwardly or something. I don't know when all the forces that have been shining a spotlight under Trump for so long, right? Because they've put his feet to the fire. They put him through everything that you could possibly throw at him, including the justice system, right? If Ron DeSantis does ultimately end up being the true threat to the system and the guy who changes the game like the DeSantis supporters want him to be, then he is going to have to face the same exact onslaught in theory that Donald Trump did if he really is that threat to the system. And I don't really see it in Ron DeSantis when I kind of look through him. Yeah, he's done good. He's had these moments where he seemed invincible. I don't see his ability. It's speculation because we don't know. But I'm not convinced, right, that under a situation of extreme pressure, just seeing, just the way he is in general, that he's going to be the guy who is like Teflon Ron, right? Because we have Teflon Don. I don't see him being Teflon Ron where he's going to be able to be put through all that. And I guess, we'll have to see. But closing up here, wrapping up, I guess, any last thoughts and kind of to conclude, put it all in a bow. Maybe you want to give a central case or a central pitch. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Feel free to.
Yeah, no. I definitely understand the point with Donald Trump. And I think a second Donald Trump term would have definitely benefited this country and obviously benefited it far more than the Joe Biden term.
Yeah.
But that's over. That happened. He lost. And now we're in the present. And now we have to realize who can lead this country for an extended period of time and begin the fight against the establishment, against the deep state, against all these rampant federal agencies who steal tax dollars from the American public and do nothing with them. And that man is Ron DeSantis. You give him 8 years, he can get us started on that. I'm not saying he's some messiah that will fix everything. That's not the case. No one man could do it, but he could get it started. So we can see other GOP candidates get elected to the presidency or to the Senate when Ron DeSantis yields results and people realize maybe the Republican movement is the way to go. That's my main point that I'll end with to counter what you said.
And that's very interesting because I actually have that same belief. It's just about Donald Trump, right? Which is the way I see it. Whether it's Trump, whether it's DeSantis, whether it's Tim Scott, who the heck knows, you're not going to save the country in 4 to 8 years. You're just not. There's a lot that has to be fixed. The bureaucracy is not going to be dismantled, right? Any of that. The economic situation is probably going to screw us over for a decade, to say the least. But to me, that is why you need someone who's going to leave a truly lasting legacy and kind of be remembered as this hero, this personality of conservatism. And you can call that irrational, and perhaps it is, but I do think it matters, right? I would say Ronald Reagan had this effect. Criticize him for this or that. I have things I disagreed with him on.
I love Ronald Reagan.
Right. But, had we just gotten, say, George H.W. Bush in 1980, you would not have had this lasting movement of conservatism that went into the 90s, went into 2000s, because the personality, the icon, the sort of superhero that was Ronald Reagan inspired this movement called the Reagan Revolution, and inspired future generations of conservatives to want to be like him, or continue that movement, continue his legacy, right? He will never be a president that's forgotten. History books in 100 years are always going to remember Reagan. They might not remember someone like a Bush, right? So my thing with Donald Trump is, I look to where we are as a country. We need, and by the way, a lot of people are demoralized. A lot of people are just like, everything is screwed, it all sucks, it's going downhill, right? We need the hero in this moment who's going to come along and inspire a resurgence culturally too. I think that's a big thing, a sort of cultural resurgence of conservatism. And Ron DeSantis, be it as he may, maybe people make the argument he'll be effective at this, effective at that. Neither guy's going to be effective, because you got Democrats to get through, you got a deep state to get through, all that stuff. I don't see him being the guy who leaves a legacy after him to, yes, inspire those future generations of conservatives. He just doesn't have the personality. He doesn't have the legacy. He doesn't just have the it factor, right, that Donald Trump has, that Reagan has, Obama had, you could say, on the Democrat side, JFK had. I just don't see that in him. You see what I'm saying?
I would say right now, the world, and especially this country, we don't need a superhero. We don't need some messianic figure with false promises that will lead us to some revolution. What we need is a man who yields results and can prove this is the right way to go. Now, Ronald Reagan had great policy, some not effective, some effective, but the effective policy is what inspired people to say, hey, whatever this guy stands for works, and I want to be like him. So far, that's not what Donald Trump has proven.
That's just not true, though, because let's be, I get the way you think, right? You're all rational policy, this and that. But the reality is, most people remember Reagan because of the image that he
great
was.
Personality,
the speeches, tear down that wall.
Absolutely.
That's what really inspires people. It's the
but
same thing with Donald Trump.
In Donald Trump.
Drive around rural America.
I get that. But that's because Donald Trump has been the only option for these guys. I mean, name one other Republican who's been willing to stand up besides Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump against this deep state establishment and begun to say, this is wrong and I will not stand for this. At that moment in time, in 2016,
I live in Ron DeSantis' state, and I see more Trump stuff here than DeSantis, right? People here don't hate DeSantis. You need to wait
for that stuff to get on the market.
People don't hate Ron DeSantis, right? But like I said, I don't see that in him. I don't see the it factor. And you can say, oh, he's effective. Okay, he's quietly effective. And that worked for someone like, say, I don't know, Calvin Coolidge in the 1920s. But you can say it doesn't matter, but every great leader in history had something that you could call a quote unquote cult of personality, right? George Washington carried a cult of personality with him. Ronald Reagan carried a cult of personality with him. Where we are right now as a country, yes, if we get the ball rolling, let's say, and we have this thing going, yeah, you can have the quiet guy. He's just effective. He's does this, does that, does this, right? Just gets it done. The way I see it right now, you can say we don't need a superhero. I'm not calling him a messianic figure. That would be kind of blasphemous or whatever, right? But we do need someone who, yes, comes along and is the inspiration, is the hero. Right, I don't see another option. I think that's just what we need.
I think when you say Ron DeSantis is like a quiet guy who's not making a movement, I mean, look at this whole thing with Disney. Disney is doing such horrible things, promoting things to children that I think you and I would definitely disagree with. Yeah. That is wrong, and he's standing up and fighting against that and saying this is wrong, and he's making it known. He doesn't back down from anyone. Where Donald Trump has supported Disney in their war against Ron DeSantis, and I think that's something you have to look at. Come on, this is something that you need. Like you said, I have a rational mind to look at and understand. You can't just follow false promises. You need to step back and look at the picture at the end of the day. And Ron DeSantis is vocal. He's not a quiet guy, and unlike Trump, he's not going off on Twitter or loud-mouthing or trashing anyone.
To forget the Twitter part. I've heard him speak. He's not the worst speaker I've ever heard. But the guy doesn't have a particular degree of charisma, and I think even his supporters are more so, well, he gets stuff done. That's the argument. He gets stuff done.
Right.
My argument at the federal level
this is the leader of the free world, the most important post in the face of the earth. If we wanted a guy with charisma, we'd vote for George Clooney, right? We want someone who has some form of charisma, who can make speeches, but also get stuff done. I mean, that's what we want in a leader: practicality, rationality, and effectiveness.
But
That's what Ron DeSantis brings to the table. I understand that in electability or getting people rallied up, he needs to be loud and say things, which I'm sure he will do. I'm sure he will give some nice speeches, but you have to give that time. He's just announced his presidency a month ago. Donald Trump has been campaigning ever since like January 21st, 2021. You need to even out the playing field, give him time to prove himself, and then you'll see a fair election where people can decide.
Here's the point I'm raising is how many people since 2016 do you think Donald Trump has brought into conservative politics that otherwise would not be in it? Somewhere in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle.
I think the person, honestly, I think the person who's brought the most conservatives in is Joe Biden, whether he likes it or not. How ridiculous and ineffective his administration and government were.
In fairness, you're a little.
That's what brought people over, not necessarily Donald Trump.
Okay, in fairness, I guess this is an age. No, this is an age thing. This is listen. In fairness,
he didn't win the second time around.
This is an age thing because you're a little younger than me. I will say pre 2020, right? The amount of people my age, older ages, all ages, who came into kind of the right wing because of not just Trump as a person, but the revolution around him, the Trump revolution, 2016, the presidency, all of that stuff. It's an insurmountably, unspeakably large share of people. It's frankly most of us. I don't know how you got in, and maybe this is a different, right? Because I assume you more so have been more involved as of the last few years, so you see more DeSantis, right, governor being the highlight politician than President Trump back then. But my big point with it is that if we're trying to long-term bring a lot of new people into conservatism and inspire future generations, something like the fact that Donald Trump is sort of this bigger, larger-than-life figure, that actually does matter to me, right? I don't think it's a non-factor at all.
I think our main disagreement is when we think about making people think of a certain ideology or accept a certain ideology, you're thinking more on the lines of like popularity and legacy and saying things that will boost people up versus
the two are connected though.
Right, but I'm more so saying be more rational, have effective policy, show people that you're the better guy, and let them on their own make the smart enough decision to vote for you instead of loud mouthing, giving false promises and lying to people so they go out, vote for you, and you don't really do any of the things you said.
That's how the system should be, but we live in a quote-unquote democracy.
That's the point. Okay, you should work to change the system. You should work against the establishment and the deep state, which is what DeSantis does. That's the whole point of politics, to change the movement, to change the idea. So
the problem is that part of the reason I make these arguments, even though they sound emotional or irrational, is because that's actually what drives voting for most people. Because most people are not rational human beings, right? And
well,
if you read even the founding fathers understood this. There's a reason why they actually kind of didn't want the whole country all voting and just deciding everything, right? The average popular masses are not rational. That's where the concept
of a republic comes in, because like the average person doesn't have enough time on their hands to understand all these issues, so they get elected representatives.
The average person also is frankly not smart enough, even if they did have the time to handle the issues.
Right, but wouldn't you say that's a problem? Like, at least people should understand the basics of issues.
Yes, it's a problem. It's a problem with the system we have. But then I would also say, well, it is a system we have. So how do we win the game as it's in front of us? Because in order to change the game, we need to win the game. So that's why I'm bringing up these arguments. That's my point, No,
I think you have to change the system and challenge the establishment of the deep state instead of playing to what it offers. That's my perspective.
But I get that. But you have to get in first. Is my point, right? And not just
he's
not
the governor
just you,
of
not just
the 13th
you.
biggest economy.
You need to inspire other people to follow you. Right.
And the way you inspire people is yielding results, is showing that my ideology and my policies are effective and they're getting you cheaper stuff. They're getting your life easier, the quality of your life. So obviously I'm right. I don't need to go out and make a big speech and get you all rallied up on false promises and just be a loudmouth and constantly insult everyone else. I need to show
that's what the Democrats do, and they seem to always manage to beat us, though, because that's been the conservative movement for decades.
If we're going to do what the Democrats do, what difference does that make us from them?
Because
we have to do something different.
Our beliefs are different.
And we need to show those beliefs by enacting them in policies and making changes in people's lives so they think, oh, wait, this guy's right because what he did for me
but
worked.
If they're playing the game in a way that wins and we're playing the game in a way that loses, then what does it matter if we are morally right if we don't have the
But I think you're starting to see the game
that?
change with more people becoming conservatives. People realize how deep the rabbit hole really is and how the world really works. I think more people are beginning to realize that, and more people are willing to change the game. And that's why you see the rise of people like Andrew Tate on the internet, who like directly and openly challenge the deep state, the establishment, and as he likes to call it, the matrix. I mean, people want to see change, and that's what Ron DeSantis will bring, because he will bring effective policy and change the game, challenge the deep state, and not play to it like Donald Trump does.
And well, just one last thing, and I would say the reason someone like an Andrew Tate is popular is because it's not just the things he says; it's the personality, it's the
right. Absolutely,
it's kind of my point, right? But all right. Anyways, Pravir, thank you very much for coming on. I don't want to keep you too long. We could do this again sometime because I think there's a lot that we have to talk more about. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I appreciate you coming on. It was fun. I think we got some back and forth.
It was an honor to be on.
Appreciate it, man. Great. Appreciate you supporting the channel. And I mean, obviously, we disagree on this topic, but I think we agree overall on what we want to see for the country. So yeah, I appreciate having the discussion, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. All right, folks. Well, there was the debate. I will do super chats here for about, let's see, it's 9:27. We'll do like 20 minutes because, oops. Okay, well, I didn't want to put that on the screen. Okay. All right, we'll do super chats here for about 10 to 20 minutes or so. I'll read. I'll give you kind of thoughts, reactions, all that stuff. So, yeah, let's get right into those. Let me see. Let's get caught up here. But, yeah, we're now in our Q&A super chats portion. So anything you want to send in, feel free to do so. It's greatly appreciated very much. I appreciate it. But, yeah, let's get into this. Okay, so Q&A time. Republican thinker for $5 Canadian. Hold on. I forgot to play these sound effects. Let's play the sound effects, okay? There we go. Oh wait, this is an old one. Oh wait, what? Okay, hold on. Let me just get back up in here. Okay. Hold on. Did I? Okay. Wait. I'm all confused now. I have some super chats showing up here, some showing up there. It's all over the place. Okay, Zach Smith for $2 says Pat Buchanan 2024. This is real. This is real. Okay. Joe Biden is old. Let's put in someone older. Pat Buchanan's gonna run for president. Could you imagine? That would be kind of funny. Anyways, Republican thinker for $10 Canadian says failure brings wisdom and life experience. Exactly who we want as a president. It's easy for DeSantis to deliver in a Republican state as compared to a split country. This is very true. Thank you for the $10, Republican thinker. And yeah, and that's even why partially just knowing the character arc of Donald Trump's life, why when I look at, the fact that, oh, he failed in business and then came back. Well, that's what America likes, is it not? I forget who said it. I think it's someone said this to Michael Jordan or something, right? America loves a fall, but what America loves more than a fall is a fall and a comeback, right? What more American way to finish the story than failing in 2020 and then having a comeback? So that's what I would say to that. All right, let's check out our other super chats here. Okay, so we did get to that one. Okay, so let me get caught up here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what we got going on. Republican thinker for $5 Canadian says without Trump you wouldn't have Ron. Trump made Ron's career skyrocket, but Trump doesn't bring enthusiasm. What? Thank you for the $5 Canadian Republican thinker. And, it is kind of true, right? Without Trump, you would not have Ron DeSantis. And that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point about Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis' governorship. Don't, just because I don't support his presidency, don't make you think I'm like downplaying it. I think his governorship is probably one of the most important governorships in our country in a long time. Not just because of what he did in terms of policy, which is what he would have said, the guy would have said, right? Pravir would have said. But it's because he started this precedent, this legacy of Republican states standing up to the federal government and just basically saying, we're going to actually use the bully pulpit. In some ways, you could say we're going to, quote unquote, rule with an iron fist in a good way, right? And just do what needs to be done at the state level. Ron DeSantis is only there because of Donald Trump. It was a Trump handpicked guy. You could say him running for governor inspired Trump. He ran off of being, remember the 2018 ad? I'm the biggest Trump guy there is, right? And so my point about Donald Trump is that if you want to reclaim the country long term, you need all these people who got into politics because of Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis is governor because of Donald Trump. But it's more than that. I am in politics right now because of Donald Trump, right? So if you're a fan of me, you get what I'm saying here. I probably would not be doing this today if Trump were never elected president. I'd probably just be, I'd be in med school. Oh, I'd be doctor. Okay, seriously. I'm serious about that. That's probably where I'd be. I'm no joke about that, right? But I do what I do now. Why? Because the movement and just the spirit around Donald Trump and him just existing brought me in. Probably brought a lot of you into it too, right? That matters. Understand that, right? Because whoever we have is going to have to outlive themselves. Donald Trump's going to outlive himself, right? Future generations for decades to come, much like Ronald Reagan did the first time before Donald Trump, are going to say, I am in this movement. I'm doing this because I was inspired by Donald Trump way back in, whether that was 2017 or 2025, right? So that's exactly my point. And the reason why I say you need something of a larger than life figure, a superhero, if you will, and why I don't think that's something to just be, oh, whatever, you know, policy this, policy that. Either way, whether it's DeSantis or Trump, certain policies are going to get stifled. I hate to tell you, right? We're not going to abolish the FBI. We're not going to have an immigration moratorium. These things are not going to realistically happen by the end of that first term or even second term if it's DeSantis. The point is, who can push the needle, but, you know, kind of get the momentum going to where other people want to push with him afterwards? I don't see that in Ron DeSantis, which is my point in the problem. And frankly, right, if it were 1988, you just had Reagan, he ended the cancer that was the 60s and the 70s, and he kind of started this American resurgence, did some things I don't like, but still overall started this resurgence. You could hand it to a Ron DeSantis and say, okay, Mr. DeSantis, I have, you know, done this for the country. Now just steer the wheel, steer the train. Cool. DeSantis probably thrive in a situation like that. But my problem is where we are right now. Yeah, like I said, we need the Trump, and that's kind of my point there. But all right, let's get caught up now here on more of our super chats, ladies and gentlemen. We're now at $70, so we're $30 away from our $100 dono goal, so feel free to do it. Greatly appreciated, guys. But anyways, let's get caught up here. Andrew M for $5 Canadian says Trump brought, let me see if I can put it on the screen. Hold on. Is this it? Yeah, Andrew M says Trump brought blue-collar union workers to vote Republican for the first time for most and broke the so-called blue wall back in 2016. This is true. This is true. Very true. Thank you for the 5 Canadian, and it is real, right? Trump did bring, for all the people we say he drove away, maybe he drove someone off, but Trump also brought a lot of new people into politics, which is obviously very important. Zachary sends in a member chat for 4 months saying, had a nice weekend. Excuse me. Did a final push for R101 at a mosque Friday and a Sikh temple Sunday. Remember to vote when it comes on the ballot in November if you're in Washington. Well, thank you for the member chat, Zachary. I appreciate it. I'm glad to see the GOP is doing a lot of different outreach, but I will say, hopefully you guys are reaching the actual core base of the GOP, which is obviously Christians, right? So, you know, Washington, my only concern with a state like that, I could see them doing it. Oh, we think, okay, let's go for the Muslims. Let's go for the Sikhs. Look, add the coalition however you need to add it, but make sure you're getting the Christians too, because at the end of the day, all this talk about this minority, that minority, it is the Christians that are the core of the GOP. So definitely make sure you're doing that too. But glad to see the Washington GOP is doing something for sure. Christopher for $10. Thank you very much, Christopher. Let me play the noise. Christopher for $10 says, I still support Trump because of protectionism, trade, immigration reduction, and anti-war foreign policy. He understands what makes a country a superpower. Thank you for the $10, Christopher. It is very true. And, you know, yeah, obviously, I think we'll have him back on in the future because we definitely have more to talk about for sure. And so foreign policy, that's a big one. And that's something that Ron DeSantis won't really seemingly give a straight answer on. So, you know, it is true. And yeah, the trade deals definitely are certainly a big deal. Thank you for the $10, Christopher. I appreciate it very much. Again, we are reading super chats right now, so feel free to send them in. By the way, because I keep forgetting, be sure to sign up for our email list. If you're watching right now, be sure to sign up for our email list at VinceDaoTV.com. Again, that is VinceDaoTV.com. Sign up for our email list. I will be doing another exclusive newsletter video at 200 subscribers. I'll figure out what it is, not sure yet. So we're at about 100 subscribers right now on the email list. When we hit 200, I'll give you guys a new video. But for now, we started today, we're doing the daily Vince Dow brief. Okay, so every day I'm going to give my thoughts on something. I'm going to try to make it insightful to people, right? So today I just gave some thoughts on my 2024 candidates, but I don't know, we might have some advice and wisdom, but the biggest reason why you need to join the email list is if we ever get deplatformed or striked or whatever, that's the surefire way to stay in touch with me. So be sure to join the email list again at vincedao.tv.com. Again, that is vincedao.tv.com. Sign up for the email list. If some of our mods could put that in the chat, that'd be greatly appreciated. Sign up. Let's get that to 200 subscribers. Anyways, Burgundy Blue for $2 says, I'm a rational thinker. I love Ronald Reagan. Rio, this is the George Floyd conservative. Kidding, Burgundy Blue, but yes, thank you for the $2. I appreciate it very much. Salts for 250. I don't know what that is. Is that peas? 250 peas. Is that pesos? Or I think that's what it is, right? But anyways, for 250, whatever this is, just donated 250. I appreciate it very much. Salts, that says that is the first super chat from Salts. I appreciate it very much. Can someone in the chat give me the confirmation on what currency that is? Is that pesos? Is that I'm not sure, but thank you for whatever it is, Salts. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, I appreciate it very much. God bless you. And then Salts sends in 500 of whatever it is. Sends in 500. Appreciate it very much, Salts. God bless you. I appreciate the support. Thanks for the super chats. Let me figure out what currency that is. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Is it peso symbol? Is it a peso? I believe it is. Or okay, a Filipino peso, I think it says. Okay, so from the Philippines. Thank you very much, Salts. Shout out to the Philippines. We love our Filipinos. Good to see you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. Appreciate it very much. Salt says none of your business. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. All right, there you go. All right, thank you, Salts. I will ask no questions, Salts. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyways, Pravir says, hey, I'm happy you guys enjoyed my appearance and found it interesting. I hope I can be back on the show. Also, I'm 17 for anyone wondering. Yeah, Pravir, we'll definitely bring you on in the future. I like the discussion for sure. And I forgot, you said plug your Twitter if you want in the live chat. I forgot. Here, I'll make you a mod. I forgot. I know you sent me an email. You wanted me to plug something. So whatever you want to plug, go ahead. Feel free to do it in the live chat. And I appreciate the discussion. If DeSantis was smarter, he would jump on with Trump and share the ticket as VP, then parlay into the presidential election in 2028. The problem with that is that I think they're from the same state, right? And I don't know if you can change that. So, which I don't believe you can. So you can't have the president and vice president from the same state. So you'd lose Florida's electoral votes, which obviously you can't do. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. But I would like to see, ideally, yeah, I think a Trump-DeSantis unity ticket would probably be a good thing. But I don't know if it's logistically possible at this point. So I don't know. By the way, guys, how we feel, huh? How we feel about the beard? So I've not touched. I feel like it's getting to the point where I have to start actually grooming it. Maybe like get one of those beard razors and like keep it at a length. But how do we feel about it? Okay, we've been growing it out. All right, it's now been like 2 weeks, I believe. I haven't shaved it in like 2 weeks. You know, the only thing is I've never groomed for a beard. I've just shaven it off. So I gotta kind of learn how to do that, to tell you the truth. But how we feel? We still digging the beard? Still digging it? Starting to get a little longer, you know. I feel like now the progress is slower because it's already long, but this is 2 weeks worth of growth. I mean, that's not bad, right? Not bad. I don't know how we feel. Should I put out another poll? What's the approval rating on the beard? I feel like people are already fans of it though, so you know, just shave it off, bro. I'm not shaving it off, Simple Nuggets. Okay, we've crossed the Rubicon. I can't go. If I shave it off, I'm just gonna have a baby face. Okay, so you can't do that. All right. I'm willing to maintain it, obviously, which I gotta kind of figure out the plan there. If anyone has suggestions, you know. But no, it has grown on me. Okay, Dirty Mike is so vindicated. It has grown on me. I attacked Dirty Mike so much for the idea of the beard, only for him to be vindicated. So, you know, first thing I've ever been wrong about. Kidding, I've been wrong about plenty, but it is true. It is true. So grow the beard and shave your head. Oh, so I can be dollar store Andrew Tate. I can be Andrew Tate. Oh, what color is your Bugatti? Oh, what would the nickname be? Top Lee? Top Lee? No, I'm not shaving the head, okay? All right? I'm not, because people will just say you're ripping off Andrew Tate. That's the problem. So, but Brian Chen for $5. Thank you very much. Brian Chen says, "Hi, Vince." Wait, let me play the sound effect. I don't want to forget to play it. There you go. All right. "Hi, Vince. Great debate today. How do you think DeSantis can turn things around? He's plummeting in the polls. By the way, your beard is great as is." Thank you very much, Brian Chen. Is it Chen? Thank you very much for the 5. Well, to tell you the truth, I don't have a simple answer as to how he could turn it around, because a lot of this stuff is momentum based, right? So my big thing, the path I thought DeSantis had to victory is you have a because Trump was a little bit vulnerable in the beginning of the year, right? You have a very good announcement launch, which that's part of the problem. You know, it was a little bit of a mess, right? A very good announcement, you get an announcement bump. And then the other thing is, I think he had to really have a message that in some ways was revolutionary, right? Because he had to be the guy who, I guess, went after the failures of Trump, but in the right ways and not the wrong ways, which is very hard, obviously, right? And just, I don't know, just generally had a message that was more inspiring and also unconventional, kind of from left field than it is now, right? Because basically what he's gone out and said is, look, I'm a really good governor. Here's what we've done. Here's what I stand for. Same speech he's given when he was governor. And this is why you should make me president. It's just not enough, right? That's just not. So to tell you the truth, you know, you're down 30 now. There are hypothetically ways I could see Ron DeSantis making it back. The problem is I don't think he has the it factor it takes to make up the gap, right? Because I think what you're seeing now is kind of what people forgot about Ron DeSantis, which is he doesn't have the biggest personality. He doesn't have the biggest charisma or whatever it is. And in order for him at this point to close the gap with Trump, he would have to somehow become a political figure who is more charming than Trump, who is louder than Trump, who also is more visionary than Trump, all this stuff. And I just don't see any of that. I just don't think he possesses that. You see what I'm saying? So that would be my answer. I don't know if he has the it factor really to do that. But this whole thing he's tried to do so far, which is just basically, I'm effective, therefore, you know, vote for me. If it were a totally empty primary field, he probably could get away with that. But because you're running against the big fish, the shark that is Donald Trump, and you're this little fish, okay, you're a little fish. He's the great white. You're like the little, you know, I don't know, the little squid. I don't know. Squid's not a fish. I don't know. Whatever. You know what I'm trying to say here, right? That's the thing. So that's my big thing is, so to tell you the truth, I don't think as it currently stands, unless Donald Trump monumentally screws up, which is hypothetically possible, but I don't see any way DeSantis with the skills and the personality and the things he currently possesses, that just, it is what it is. I don't see a way he makes it back. I think in order to make it back, he'd have to grow some it factor that I just don't see in him. You see what I'm saying? So that would be my answer, though. That would honestly be my answer. Dirty Mike for $5. Here we go, Dirty Mike. All right, hold on. Okay, wait. The sound effect is not playing. Okay, we'll play it in a second. Look how slow it is. Come on, I'm trying to give everyone their ring. Okay, but it is true. Dirty Mike for $5 says, the beard really does look great. My super hot girlfriend agrees. Well, you better watch out, Dirty Mike. In that case, you better watch. Just kidding. But anyways, just saying, I definitely take you more serious now. No tie needed. Thank you for the $5, Dirty Mike. Well, I appreciate it. I definitely do, because it makes me look older, right? It does. It makes me look older than 20. And you are right. There's something about a beard that communicates wisdom, maturity, life experience, you know? My 20 years of life experience, they show in this facial hair. It is very real and true. Thank you for the $5. Okay, there's the sound effect. There you go. All right, anyways, we will end the show here at about 9:50-ish. So last call, any last super chats you want to send in. We are $10 away from hitting $100 tonight. So if anyone wants to, finish the deal there, okay. I need to send out a GOP fundraising text. Here you go. Wait. Ray Super Chatter. I haven't seen your name on the 2024 list yet. Do you want us to lose to Joseph Robert Brandon? This is real. That's what I should use the newsletter for. Could you imagine if we use the email list for that? To raise donations and GOP tactics? Me to get a free dinner with Vince Dow. Pledge now. They did one recently that was so ridiculous. I forgot what it was. Let me see that actually. I want to see what the GOP's been trying to fundraise for me, so we can sit and laugh at it together. Okay, let's take a look here. Who the heck is Burgum? Some guy named Burgum is running for president and now has my phone number. I don't know how that happened. Well, let's see. Where's the GOP text? Where's the GOP text? Let me find it. Okay, here we go. Nope, I can't. Where? Okay, well, we can't find it right now. You know what I'm talking about, though. Those Ronna McDaniel texts. I need to send that to the newsletter. That's how we'll raise our money. I don't see your name on the list, Patriot. Do you want the country to die by nuclear hellfire? If not, please donate to the GOP right now. Real and true, real and true. Boy Tran says, how tall are you? I got 5 on under 5'5". Well, then you lost. Then you owe me $5 because I am 5'8". So there you go. Lost the bet. There, lost the bet, Boy Tran. Anyways, Burgundy Blue for $10. Thank you very much. Here we go. Burgundy Blue says, Vince, did you hear that the Air Shanghai flight crashed? The captain was something Wong. The co-pilot was Wee Too Low, sorry, and the 2 flight attendants' names were Holy Blank and We So Dead. Thank you for the $10, Burgundy Blue. You know, that's a very 2014 era Facebook meme, but I appreciate it. Okay, would you like me to read it in the Captain, there's something wrong. Something is wrong. We too low. Okay, we so dead. There you go, Burgundy Blue. Thank you for the $10. Hoi Tran says no without shoes. Yes, without shoes, I am 5'8". That is correct, Hoi Tran. Okay, yes. I'm not under 5'5" without shoes. You can ask my physician, Hoi Tran. You know I'm a big boy, right? I have a big boy physician. You can ask her. Actually, it's actually a she. There you go. I am 6 foot tall, which is greater than 5'8". I can't wait for this debate. Technology impossible. Well, listen. Okay? Julius Caesar was around my height, you know? Napoleon. Many such others. So everyone, Vince, you're so short, you're so short. Listen. You better watch. Just kidding. But anyways, let's see here. Last call for Super Chats, ladies and gentlemen. Gonna end the show very soon. Free dinner where? KFC? Whoa, Brian Chen. Whoa. What are you trying to say there? Brian Chen? But, that would be kind of funny. Could you imagine that? We did like a fundraising thing where you can win a dinner with Vince Dow. Okay. Yes, win a dinner for Vince. I will buy you the Grimace Shake. Okay? I will buy you the Grimace Shake. Salt says, have a good day, young sir. Trump MAGA, bye. We'll see you later, Salt. I appreciate it very much. Appreciate the pesos or whatever you sent. Your average height, Vince, no worries. Well, it doesn't stop people from making fun of it. But see, here's the thing, right? Is I think if you're short, then you just got to play harder, right? Because you don't have height going for you. So, you know, just be cool. Grow a beard. Work out. Drive a nice car. You know, it's just what you got. You got. Oh, Vince, you're compensating. Well, I guess it is, but to a degree, it's true, right? That's what you got to do as a short guy. But Burgundy Blue for $2 says Vince is dictator. We better watch our words. This is true. You're like, Vince, you're the same height as Julius Caesar and Napoleon and Mussolini or whatever. Ha ha. We're gonna make fun of you. I said, you better watch out. Liza says, why'd you not stream on 7/14? Because it was 7/14 and it was so bad we couldn't stream. No, I was out of town. I have said this. I was out of town. Okay, I was in West Palm Beach. You know, you want to see what I was doing? Here, I'll show you what I was doing in West Palm Beach. Here, let's see if I can find it. If I can save pictures from Instagram. Okay, I don't know if this is gonna work, unfortunately. But I was in West Palm Beach seeing Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson and Vivek Ramaswamy and many of you guys, actually. Many of you guys, which was very nice. I met some of you guys at the event, which was cool. We need to, you know, I don't promote this enough. I need to start promoting like a month in advance the events, the political events I'm going to go to. So that way, if you're around or you want to come, like we can coordinate something. We could even do a VinceDao meetup. I don't know. We should figure that out. So America Fest in December in Arizona. I definitely will be there. I might be at Revolution this August. You know, I know it's Yao or whatever, I think is who hosts it. I was thinking of going to that. So I don't know if you're in Orlando or Arizona or you're trying to go to a political convention, I may be at both of those. Just FYI. Maybe I should start telling people so that way we can coordinate. I don't know. But anyways, what is your favorite fiction book? That's a good question. What is my favorite fiction book? I don't know. I'm not very fond of very many fiction books, to tell you the truth. Let me think. I don't know. I really liked The Giver back in middle school, which is honestly probably the last fiction book I read. So, I mean, yeah, I might just say The Giver. I don't know. That's not a strong convicted answer, but I remember I really liked that book when I was in middle school, and that's probably the last fiction book I seriously read. I mean, I quote unquote read some fiction books in high school. Teacher, stupid teacher. Yeah, you got all your questions from Quizlet and then thought I didn't find them. Yeah, real. This is true. Because that was probably the last book I read without Spark Notes, okay? As many of us did in high school. I never actually read the books. I don't care much for fiction books, because when I read, I want to learn something. I don't find reading in itself to be particularly entertaining. So it's really been a long time since I've read fiction books. But I'm just going to tell you The Giver because I remember liking that book. And it would probably be a pretty basic answer to tell you, like, 1984. Which, as cliche and as overused as it is, when I was younger, I did genuinely enjoy reading that book. But I'll say The Giver. There you go. Burgundy Blue for 2 says, oh, the Communist Manifesto. Okay, that's probably a good answer. All right, here we go. Last few super chats here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get to them here. Let me read them. By the way, hopefully tomorrow night we'll actually do a normal show. I feel like we haven't done a normal show in several days, because we had the debate with the liberal, and then we had this debate tonight. So we might do a normal show tomorrow, but I've enjoyed actually switching it up. You know, it's talk about the news every single night. It gets repetitive, right? But here you go. Burgundy Blue for $5 says, oop, it's not working. There you go. Vince looking like Pablo Escobar with the popped collar and half the grown beard. We better look out. This is true. Okay, I am indeed a mafia boss. All right? You think it's a joke, but my Italian uncle, Vinny, the last guy named Vinny in my family, who is now deceased, which is the only reason I'm saying it. You know, let's say he did some things. He had a Rolex that was very suspicious, and people asked, "Why? How, you got a Cadillac? You got a Rolex? You run this business that doesn't seem like it makes a lot of money. Business? What's going on there?" Well, you know, some have said that the last Vinny in my family is part of the Italian mafia. So this is true. So, you know, inspired by his legacy, I have decided to be a mafia boss in Minecraft, of course. In Minecraft. In GTA Online, I am indeed a mafia boss. So this is true. All right, Burgundy Blue for 2 says, my favorite fiction book is The Communist Manifesto. And this should be the last super chat of the night here, but Republican Thinker for 5 Canadians says, we need a national push to fund any movement to the USA. Get me out of the communist dictatorship of Canada. Well, you could probably just hop the border, to tell you the truth, Republican Thinker. I mean, I don't know if it's particularly complicated. Just walk across. What are they going to do? Deport you? Is Brandon going to deport you? I mean, I don't know. But it is true. Thank you for the 5 Canadian. Listen. I think we need a general reduction in mass immigration, but you can come, okay? You, Andrew M., all the sad, poor Canadians, we need to do an exchange program, okay? We'll deport some people. You can come. And this will be very good for the country. Okay, this will be very good for the country. You know, just abandon Canada. Screw it. People will say, "Oh, but Vince, that's still mass immigration." I mean, yeah, fine, I get it, but at least, you know, it's like you're gonna have that anyway. At least be it from a Republican thinker. You know what I'm saying? So maybe just walk across. Maybe just walk across. I don't know. All right, folks, well, I believe we got no more super chats for the night. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. As usual, be sure to join us tomorrow night for the next episode of The Vince Dao Show at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, let me put the email list in the chat. Join the email list at VinceDaoTV.com. Okay, again, we're going to be sending out daily newsletters on there. Okay, well, thank you, YouTube, for linking Vince Dao. Okay, join the email list. https://VinceDaoTV.com. There you go. Yeah, folks, be sure to join the email list. Actually, let me pin that here as the last comment here, ladies and gentlemen. Join the email list. Again, we'll be sending out a daily newsletter there. But the biggest thing, if we ever get deplatformed, that is where you need to be informed, okay? So join that email list at VinceDaoTV.com. We are currently at about 100 subscribers. When we get to 200, I will give you guys a brand new video there on the newsletter. So yeah, we get exclusive content on there too. So it is free. Join the email list, VinceDaoTV.com. All right, folks, until then, have a very good night. Alpha moves only, God bless. Be sure to leave a like on the stream before you go. Let's get to 150 likes. Alpha moves only, God bless, and peace. See you guys.